So, guys, I sat down and I read the first chapter, chapter zero, basically, of Trigun, the Lost Plant. Very interesting stuff. Pretty, definitely straightforward. Um, very, very short, but it was very interesting about this chapter that intrigued me a lot. And just seeing Vash um, in in a in a in a similar light, but also different light, just because he, for what he did in this chapter. I mean, he was still his normal, goofy self, but in the end, he shifted to a more serious Vash, and the fact that a couple of things that he used his initials VTS in this chapter, which I'm gonna guess and say that he does it throughout the manga, but I also kind of I kind of question why they didn't implement that in the anime, but I guess it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. It was just very interesting that they decided to do that here in the first chapter. Excuse me. And I also found that it was interesting about this, that back in episode 21, Out of Time, that this ancient plant spirit, was a part of this ship that Vash traveled on, with with the people that created him, and even basically this plant is basically Vash and Knives, basically like their family. Like, this is basically, from the information I gained from the manga, is that this is basically how, I would basically say like an ancestor to Vash and Knives, like a family member, basically. Because in this chapter, he basically says that this is how me and Knives were born. Because Veronica, she and everybody else created Vash and Knives. We know this information, but it was just very, very, very interesting that this plant that also powered these ships too, because we also see that here in episode one, when the ship is going all haywire, and then the plant becomes operational, and the ship goes back to normal for a split second before stuff happens and causes the ship to crash. But I found it very interesting that this, because I was sitting back when I was reading, I was like, why does this look familiar to me? And I had to go back and look for it, and I found it. Boom, it was right here, episode 21. But to see this happen, and this is to learn information about this plant being pregnant with a child, with a son that was basically a radioactive nuke. Basically, that's the best thing I could think of. It's basically like it was when the plant was basically telling Vash and Verona, which is also another interesting character too, that the child, if being born, it would totally destroy the entire planet within split seconds. And literally, the child was being born right there in front of their eyes within moments of this conversation. Was also very interesting. But again, with this plant asking Vash, BTS, to kill her and the child, was also interesting. But Vash didn't do that. Because the plant was telling Vash to shoot 6 shots, and he did. He ended up sending this child to a different galaxy, universe, or whatever it was, that created this new place for it to live, which was also an interesting thing to read, guys. It was a different take for this chapter, with everything that happened, and the fact, like I said, Verona showing, being introduced in the beginning of this chapter, Vash kind of just bumping into her and going along with him, excuse me, going along with her on several journeys, um, and then they go to the Grand Canyon, and they find this plant, they find this person who is pregnant with this child in this bubble, um, and it's just very interesting. And Vash had already, from what I could tell, Vash had maybe possibly already even met this plant before. So definitely an interesting way to start and finish this chapter, this very short chapter, guys. I was definitely intrigued from start to finish. And like I said, I'm curious as to wondering also why Verona wasn't brought into the anime. That was the other thing that I was curious about. It's okay. It's not that big of a deal, but it was just like, Verona and Vash meet, but she's not in the anime, which is really really interesting stuff. But all in all, straightforward chapter that I enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to reading the next chapters to come, moving forward with the manga. But definitely, guys, enjoyed chapter 0 of Trigun, the manga. Definitely did, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. But with that, guys, I'm about to be out. What did y'all think of this video? Let's have a conversation in the comment section if you feel up to it, and I will talk to you on the next Trigun video. Peace, guys.